In the dim glow of the Kepler-9 space station's artificial dawn, Lieutenant Commander Ethan Harlow stirred from a deep, exhausted slumber. His quarters, a modest enclave amidst the sprawling metallic labyrinth of the station, had always been his sanctuary, a place of solitude where the ceaseless hum of life support systems lulled him into oblivion after grueling shifts. At 35, Ethan was a man forged in the fires of interstellar security. Tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp hazel eyes that missed nothing and a jawline etched by years of vigilance. He had risen through the ranks not through ambition, but through an unyielding sense of duty, patrolling the neutral zones where human and alien diplomacies danced on the edge of a knife. Last night, after a 16-hour marathon resolving a heated trade dispute between rival merchant fleets and fixing a glitch in the environmental controls that threatened to turn the hydroponics bay into a frozen wasteland, he had collapsed into bed alone, as always. His final security sweep confirmed the locks were engaged, sensors clear, no intrusions, no anomalies. Sleep claimed him swiftly, a merciful void. But now, as consciousness trickled back, something felt profoundly amiss. A warmth enveloped his side, soft and rhythmic, like the gentle rise and fall of ocean waves on a distant Earth beach he had only seen in holovids. It was alive, this warmth, breathing in sync with his own breaths, pressing against him with an intimacy that sent a jolt through his system. Ethan's eyes snapped open, his training kicking in before panic could. He lay still, assessing. Curled against his chest was a figure, ethereal and otherworldly. Her skin shimmered with faint bioluminescent veins, like stars woven into flesh, and her hair cascaded in silken waves of midnight blue, framing a face of exquisite elegance. High cheekbones, full lips, parted in peaceful repose, and eyelids fringed with lashes that fluttered faintly. She was Etherian, that much was clear. The graceful species from the distant Velthara Nebula, known for their advanced telepathic arts and intricate court politics. Her attire, a flowing silken robe embroidered with glowing runes, screamed nobility. How had she gotten here? His mind raced through protocols, breach in security, teleportation tech, a hallucination from contaminated air. Ethan's heart pounded as he carefully disentangled himself, sliding away inch by inch to avoid waking her. But as he moved, his gaze caught on anomalies in the room. Small crystalline orbs affixed to the walls, pulsing with a soft azure light. Etherian recording devices, he realized with a chill. They hummed faintly, their lenses trained on the bed, capturing every detail. Active transmission. Whatever this was, it wasn't private. The woman stirred then, her long lashes lifting to reveal eyes that swirled with colors. Deep violet shifting to warm amber, like a nebula birthing stars. She blinked, awareness dawning, and for a moment their gazes locked. In that instant, Ethan felt an inexplicable pull, a magnetic resonance that transcended species. Her expression flickered from serene contentment to wide-eyed shock, then settled into a mask of regal composure tinged with regret. "By the stars," she murmured in flawless galactic standard, her voice a melodic cadence that resonated like wind chimes in a crystal cavern. This was not how I envisioned our paths crossing. Before Ethan could demand answers, who she was, how she'd bypassed his locks, why she was in his bed, the door chime blared with an emergency override tone. "Lieutenant Commander Harlow," barked Commander Elena Voss through the comm, her voice laced with fury that could melt hull plating. "Open this door now. We have a Code 7 diplomatic crisis on our hands." Ethan's stomach dropped. Code 7. Interstellar incident involving royalty or high-level espionage. He glanced back at the woman who was now sitting up, drawing her robe tighter with graceful poise. "I am Lyrael Vasari," she said softly, as if reading his unspoken question. "Third daughter of the Etherian sovereign, heir to the celestial throne. And you, Ethan Harlow, have just become entangled in a web far greater than this station." Her eyes held his, a swirl of gold now, conveying urgency and something deeper, an unspoken plea. Ethan authorized the door, and it hissed open to admit a storm. Commander Voss, a stern woman in her 50s with iron-gray hair and a uniform starched to perfection, flanked by a security team in full tactical gear. Behind them loomed Etherian diplomats, their tall forms draped in flowing garments that shifted colors like living auroras, their expressions a mix of outrage and calculation. Voss's eyes swept the scene, the disheveled bed, Lyriel perched regally upon it, the glowing sensors, and her face darkened to a thundercloud. "Harlow," she growled, "explain yourself. How in the void did an Etherian princess end up in your quarters, and why are there recording devices broadcasting to half the galaxy?" Ethan's mind whirled. "Commander, I swear, I went to bed alone. Security logs will confirm it. I woke up and she was here. I have no idea how or why." He turned to Lyrael, seeking confirmation, but she met his gaze with calm assurance. "It is as he says," she interjected, her voice carrying the weight of authority. "I sought refuge here, and circumstances evolved." One of the Etherian officials, a severe male with silver-streaked hair and eyes like polished obsidian, stepped forward. "The eternal bond has been invoked," he declared, his tone brooking no argument. "Princess Lyrael Vasari has been recorded in sacred repose with this human. Under Etherian canon, such vulnerability shared constitutes the forging of a consort guardian alliance. It is irrevocable, witnessed by the stars themselves." Ethan blinked. Sacred repose? We were sleeping, fully clothed. Nothing intimate happened. The official's lips curled in faint disdain. In our culture, to share sleep, to entrust one's dreams and defenseless form to another, is the pinnacle of intimacy. It binds souls, grants protection, and elevates the guardian to royal status. The censors have transmitted the proof to our sovereign and your Federation Council. The bond stands. Voss rubbed her temples, looking like she'd aged a decade in minutes. "Harlow, you're confined to quarters until we sort this mess. Princess, you'll return to your diplomatic suite under escort." But Lyrael rose, her presence commanding the room. "The bond protects me now through him. Separating us violates the canon." The air thickened with tension, arguments erupting in a babel of voices. Ethan stood amid the chaos, his world upended. Who was this princess, really? Why choose him? As guards ushered them apart, Lyrael's hand brushed his, a fleeting touch that sent a spark through his veins, her eyes locking on his with promise. "We will speak soon," she whispered. "Trust in the star's design." Escorted to a briefing room that felt more like an interrogation chamber, Ethan faced Voss and Ambassador Kai Lin, the Federation's silver-tongued diplomat, with a penchant for turning crises into opportunities. Holographic displays flickered with data, Etherian legal texts, succession charts, threat assessments. "The eternal bond," Lin began, his voice smooth as oiled silk, "is an archaic Etherian ritual meant to safeguard royals in peril. By sleeping in your embrace, Princess Lyrael has designated you her consort guardian, a role-blending protector, confidant, and partner." Ethan leaned forward. "Partner? As in?" Lin nodded. "Romantic implications are inherent, though not mandatory. It's about trust, vulnerability. Her rivals see it as a ploy to bolster her claim amid deadly court intrigues. The first two heirs met accidents, poisoned nebulae, sabotaged shuttles. Lyrael's next in line, advocating peace with humanity, which threatens war profiteers on both sides." Voss slammed a fist on the table. "And you, Harlow, are now a pawn in this cosmic game. Refuse the bond publicly, and it's void, but she'll be exposed, likely assassinated. Accept, and you're neck-deep in alien politics, with a target on your back." Ethan's mind flashed to Lyrael's eyes, that electric touch. Was it manipulation, or genuine desperation? "I need to talk to her," he said. Lin smiled faintly. "Arranged. 48 hours to decide. In the meantime, dig into how she breached security. Something smells off." As the meeting adjourned, Ethan returned to his quarters, now under guard. He pored over logs. Lyrael had used an override code. How? Her path through corridors avoided cameras flawlessly. Exhausted, he collapsed, but sleep evaded him. Instead, visions of her bioluminescent skin, her voice like a siren's call, haunted him. What if this was fate's twist, pulling him from routine into something extraordinary? The next day brought a private audience in Lyrael's opulent suite, overlooking the swirling gas giant below. Guards waited outside as she greeted him, her robe flowing like liquid starlight. "Ethan," she said, her eyes shifting to soft emerald. Affection. His cultural brief informed him. "I owe you truth," she explained, fleeing assassins, her suite bugged by rivals, his quarters the only uncompromised haven due to his unimpeachable reputation. "I meant only to hide briefly," she confessed, stepping closer, her scent like blooming night flowers. "But fatigue claimed me, and in your warmth, I felt safe for the first time in cycles." Her hand touched his arm, lingering. Ethan felt that pull again, a burgeoning connection. "Why me?" he asked. "Because you are honorable, untainted by greed. And perhaps the stars whispered your name." As they talked, barriers crumbled. Stories of her lonely court life, his isolated station existence. Laughter came, unexpected and warm. When he left, her farewell kiss on his cheek burned like a promise, but shadows loomed. That night, alarms blared, a breach in environmental systems, oxygen dropping in his sector. Ethan fought dizziness, escaping narrowly. Coincidence or the first strike? As he reported it, doubt gnawed. Was Lyrael ally or architect? Yet in his heart, a spark kindled. Romance amid the stars, spellbinding and inevitable. The Kepler-9 station orbited in uneasy silence after the oxygen breach, its corridors now patrolled by doubled security teams and flickering emergency lights that cast long, wavering shadows. Ethan Harlow moved through them like a ghost in his own life, his mind a storm of conflicting currents. The touch of Lyrael's lips on his cheek still lingered, a phantom warmth that refused to fade, even as suspicion gnawed at the edges of his trust. Was she truly the hunted princess she claimed to be, or had he become the unwitting instrument of some larger deception? Every glance from passing crew carried judgment. Whispers followed him like exhaust trails. The human who bedded an alien royal. Consort by accident. The words stung, yet beneath the humiliation burned something fiercer, a protective instinct he could neither explain nor suppress. His new temporary quarters were a downgrade. A stark security pod with reinforced walls, one narrow viewport showing the swirling crimson storms of the gas giant below, and constant surveillance feeds streaming to Central Command. No privacy, no solitude. Yet even here, Lyrael found ways to reach him. A small palm-sized crystal arrived via diplomatic courier that afternoon, pulsing softly with inner light. When Ethan touched it, her voice bloomed inside his mind, not through ears, but directly in thought, intimate and velvet smooth. "Ethan," she said, the mental caress carrying a tremor of worry. "They watch us both now, but this link cannot be intercepted. Please, listen." He sat on the edge of the bunk, gripping the crystal until his knuckles whitened. "I'm listening, but I need answers, Lyrael. Real ones, not courtly poetry about stars and fate." A soft laugh echoed in his skull, bittersweet. "Very well. No poetry then. Only truth." She told him of the succession crisis in earnest. Her eldest brother, Crown Prince Valor, had perished 2 cycles earlier when his yacht disintegrated mid-transit through the Veil Nebula. Officially an engine failure, unofficially a plasma warhead disguised as a maintenance drone. Her second sibling, Princess Seraphine, followed 6 months later, poisoned by a rare neurotoxin slipped into her ceremonial nectar during a banquet. Both deaths were ruled accidents. Both left Lyrael, the overlooked third child who preferred diplomacy to conquest, suddenly the last legitimate heir. "The war faction within my court fears me," she continued. I have spoken openly of alliance with your Federation. True peace, shared technology, open borders, they call it treason. They would rather see the throne burn than share it. Her mental voice dropped lower. Last night's sabotage in your sector was no coincidence. They know the bond exists. They know separating us weakens me. But killing you, that would shatter the canon entirely. So they test, they probe, they wait for one of us to break. Ethan exhaled slowly. And you chose my bed because your reputation is ironclad. No bribes, no scandals, no hidden debts to off-world cartels. Your security clearance is immaculate. And your quarters, a pause, almost shy, are the only place on this station where I sensed no malice in the walls. No listening eyes. Only you. He closed his eyes, letting her words settle. The crystal warmed against his palm, matching the rhythm of his heartbeat. You could have asked for sanctuary officially, gone through channels. I tried, she replied, a thread of exhaustion weaving through her tone. Twice. Both requests were lost in committee. Someone high in your own command is complicit, or at least willing to look the other way. I had no time left. Assassins were already aboard, so I came to you in secret, intending only to hide until dawn. But sleep claimed me, and when I woke in your arms... Another pause, longer this time. I did not wish to leave. The admission hung between them, fragile and electric. Ethan felt heat rise in his chest. You're saying you stayed because you wanted to? I stayed because for the first time in years I felt safe, cherished, seen, not as an heir, not as a symbol, but as Lyriel. Her thoughts brushed his like fingers trailing across skin. And you did not push me away. Even now, knowing the danger you have not demanded I sever the bond. He stood, pacing the small room. I'm not sure I could if I wanted to. The Etherians made it clear. Once forged, it's permanent unless both parties publicly renounce it before witnesses, and renouncing it would paint a bullseye on your back. Precisely. A wave of gratitude washed over him through the link, warm and golden. Which is why I ask something more dangerous than refuge. I ask your trust, and perhaps more. Silence stretched. Ethan stared out at the gas giant's churning clouds, searching for clarity. What happens if I say yes? Fully yes. Not just guardian. Consort. In every sense. Her reply came soft, almost reverent. Then the bond deepens. Our minds would entwine more closely. Emotions, memories, dreams. You would feel what I feel. I would sense your courage, your doubts, your heart. In Etherian union, such closeness is considered the highest sacrament. But it is rare between species. The risk is profound. You might lose yourself in me, or I in you. He swallowed. And the reward? Each other, she whispered. Completely. The crystal flared brighter for an instant, then dimmed as though she had withdrawn to give him space. Ethan set it carefully on the table and rubbed his face. Duty warred with desire. Logic screamed caution, something deeper, something he had buried under years of discipline, stirred awake and refused to be silenced. That evening, a carefully arranged cultural exchange allowed them a supervised walk in the station's observation dome. The transparent hemisphere offered an unobstructed view of the nebula's violet and gold tendrils curling against the black. Security personnel stood at a respectful distance, but their eyes never left the pair. Lyriel wore a simpler gown tonight, midnight silk that caught starlight and threw it back in shimmering waves. She walked beside Ethan with measured grace, yet he noticed the slight tremor in her fingers when they brushed his. They are listening, she murmured, nodding toward the guards. But not reading thoughts, not yet. He glanced sideways at her profile. Elegant, luminous, heartbreakingly vulnerable beneath the regal mask. Then speak plainly. What do you need from me tonight? She stopped beneath the widest arc of the dome, turning to face him fully. The nebula framed her like a living halo. I need to know if this bond is only politics to you, or if... She hesitated, eyes shifting to molten silver, the Etherean sign of longing. Or if you feel it too, the pull, the inevitability. Ethan studied her, memorizing every detail. The faint glow beneath her skin, the way her lashes cast shadows on her cheeks, the quiet courage in her posture despite the assassins circling. Slowly, deliberately, he lifted a hand and cupped her face. Her skin was warm, silken, faintly electric. She leaned into the touch, eyes fluttering closed. "I don't know what inevitability feels like," he said quietly. "I've spent my life following orders, securing borders, staying detached. But since I woke with you in my arms, detachment is impossible. You're under my skin, Lyrael, and I don't want you gone." A tear slipped down her cheek, luminous as liquid starlight. She caught his wrist, pressing her lips to his palm in a gesture both tender and fierce. "Then stay with me," she breathed. "Not as a guardian forced by canon. As a man who chooses me." Before he could answer, alarms shrieked, sharp staccato bursts that shattered the moment. Red emergency lighting flooded the dome. "Containment breach, hydroponics sector," blared the station-wide alert. "Toxic spore release detected. All personnel evacuate to designated safe zones." Chaos erupted. Guards rushed forward, weapons drawn, shouting orders. Ethan instinctively pulled Lyrael behind him, shielding her with his body as panicked civilians streamed past. But she gripped his arm, eyes wide with sudden understanding. "This is no accident," she said urgently. "The spores, they are Varathian, engineered. My rivals use them to mimic natural disasters. They mean to force us apart in the confusion, or eliminate us both." Ethan's training snapped into place. He scanned the exits. Main corridor blocked by stampeding crew. Secondary hatch partially open but guarded. "We go low," he decided. "Maintenance tunnels. They can't cover every access point." She nodded. Trust absolute. Hand in hand, they slipped through a service panel, dropping into the dimly lit crawlways beneath the station's deck plates. The air here was thick with the metallic tang of coolant and the faint, acrid bite of spreading spores. Ethan led, memory guiding him through the maze he had mapped during countless repair shifts. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit faded, replaced by the low groan of straining bulkheads. They emerged eventually in an auxiliary power junction. Dark, humming, safe for the moment. Lyrael leaned against a conduit, breathing hard, her gown streaked with grime, yet somehow still radiant. Ethan checked the seals on the hatch, then turned to her. "We're clear, for now." She stepped closer, closing the distance until only a breath separated them. "You protected me," she said softly, without hesitation. "It's what I do." "No." Her fingers traced the line of his jaw. "It's who you are." In the pulsing glow of the power relays, she rose on tiptoe and kissed him. The contact was supernova bright. Heat, light, longing. All of it poured through the fragile link of their lips. Ethan's arms encircled her waist, pulling her flush against him as though he could shield her from the galaxy itself. She tasted of ozone and night-blooming flowers, her mouth soft yet hungry, her hands threading through his hair with desperate tenderness. When they finally parted, both were trembling. "I choose you," he rasped against her forehead. "Whatever comes. Whatever it costs." Her smile was radiant, tear-streaked, beautiful beyond words. Then we faced the shadows together. But even as they stood entwined, a new alert chimed through his comm badge. Commander Voss's voice, clipped and urgent. "Harlow, Princess, report to command immediately. We have confirmation. The Varathian spores originated from an Etherean diplomatic shuttle, and we have a name tied to the release." Lyrael stiffened in his arms. Ethan met her gaze, seeing the same dread mirrored there. The hunt had only just begun. The command center of Kepler-9 thrummed with barely contained panic, holographic displays casting cold blue light across tense faces. Ethan and Lyrael entered side by side, hands brushing in silent solidarity as security escorts flanked them like wary shadows. Commander Voss stood at the central console, arms crossed, her expression a storm front ready to break. Ambassador Kai Lin hovered nearby, ever the diplomat. though even his polished calm showed faint cracks. The air smelled of overheated circuitry and the faint, lingering bitterness of Varathian spores that still clung to ventilation filters despite emergency purges. "Harlow, Princess." Voss's voice cut like a laser scalpel. "The diplomatic shuttle that launched the spore payload belongs to House Thaler, your uncle's faction, Your Highness. Trace isotopes match their signature exactly. They're denying involvement, of course, claiming sabotage by rogue elements. But the timing is too precise. This was meant to force an evacuation, scatter us, and give an assassin a clear shot." Lyrael lifted her chin, though Ethan felt the tremor that ran through her via their nascent mental link, a fragile thread that had strengthened since the kiss in the power junction. "Uncle Calith has coveted the throne since my father's ascension," she said evenly. "He raised Valor and Seraphine in the old ways. Conquest, purity of bloodline. My vision of peace with humanity threatens everything he has built. If he can paint my bond with Ethan as weakness, as contamination—" She let the sentence hang heavy with implication. Ethan stepped forward. "Then we don't give him the narrative he wants. We make the bond unbreakable, publicly, irrevocably." Every eye in the room snapped to him. Voss's brows shot upward. "You're suggesting a full consort declaration? In front of the entire station and live feed to both governments?" "Yes." Ethan met Lyrael's gaze. Her eyes swirled with molten gold and violet, wonder and fear entwined. "If the canon says the bond is sacred once forged in vulnerability, let's forge it in strength, in choice. Let the galaxy see this isn't coercion or accident. It's alliance. It's us." Lynn cleared his throat. "Politically astute, Lieutenant Commander. A public union ceremony would shift the frame from scandal to diplomacy. It would make any move against either of you an act of war against both our peoples. But," he glanced at Lyrael, "it would also deepen the link, irreversibly. Are you prepared for that, Princess? For a human mind sharing yours so completely?" Lyrael never looked away from Ethan. "I have been alone in my thoughts for too long. If sharing them means I am no longer solitary in facing what comes, then yes, I am prepared." Voss exhaled sharply. "Fine. We schedule it for 24 hours from now. Main atrium, full diplomatic honors, live broadcast. Security will be tripled. But Harlow—" She fixed him with a hard stare. "You're still my officer. If this goes sideways, you answer to me." Ethan nodded once. "Understood, Commander." As they were escorted out, Lyrael slipped her hand fully into his. The contact sent warmth spiraling up his arm, steadying them both. In the quiet corridor beyond the command center, she drew him into an alcove shielded by a maintenance panel. For a moment they simply stood, foreheads touching, breathing each other in. "I never wanted to drag you into my war," she whispered. "You didn't drag me. I walked in with eyes open." He lifted her chin gently. "And I'd walk through worse to keep you safe." Her smile was small, luminous. "Then let me show you what you're truly choosing." She pressed 2 fingers to his temple. The mental link flared brighter, no longer a thread but a river. Images cascaded into his mind, not forced but offered like precious gifts. A childhood spent in crystal palaces orbiting Velthara's triple suns. Lessons in telepathic etiquette while assassins lurked in every shadow. Laughter shared with siblings now lost. Nights alone on balconies, gazing at stars and wondering if anyone beyond her bloodline would ever see her as more than a crown. And then, newer memories, waking in his arms, the simple human warmth of his heartbeat against her cheek, the absence of calculation in his sleeping face. Safety, desire, hope. Ethan let his own memories flow back in return. Boot camp under merciless drill instructors. First deployment to a pirate-infested asteroid belt. Friends lost to decompression accidents. Long shifts staring at sensor readouts, wondering if duty was all life would ever offer. And now, her. The impossible reality of her curled against him, trusting him with everything fragile inside her. The taste of her kiss still vivid on his lips. The fierce need to protect not just her body, but the light she carried. When the flow eased, both were breathing hard, eyes shining. "You're beautiful," he said roughly, "inside and out. Every part of you." She laughed softly, a sound like starlight on water. "And you are steadfast, unbreakable. I have never known anyone like you." They spent the remaining hours before the ceremony in preparation, yet stolen moments wove through it all. In a private meditation chamber reserved for Etherian dignitaries, Lyrael taught him the basics of shielding his mind, simple barriers of will that would keep their deepest thoughts private even as the bond deepened. He proved a quick study, his disciplined focus serving him well. In return, he showed her how to move in low-gravity environments, how to anticipate human body language, small things that would help her navigate his world as he prepared to enter hers. Night fell, artificial, station time, and they were granted one final hour alone in her suite. Guards posted outside, sensors swept clean. No interruptions, just them. Lyrael had changed into ceremonial robes of translucent white shot through with threads of living starlight. The fabric clung and flowed in equal measure, revealing and concealing a perfect echo of her duality, vulnerable yet regal. She stood by the viewport, the gas giant's storms painting her in shifting crimson and gold. Ethan approached slowly, feeling the gravity of the moment settle over them like a mantle. "You're sure?" he asked one last time. She turned, eyes soft as twilight. "I have never been more certain of anything." He closed the distance. This time when they kissed, it was slower, deeper, a promise sealed rather than stolen. Her hand slid beneath his uniform jacket, palms warm against his back. His fingers tangled in her midnight blue hair, cradling her head as though she were the most precious thing in the cosmos. Heat built between them, unhurried yet inevitable, like stars spiraling toward merger. They moved to the wide bed, shedding layers with reverent care. When skin finally met skin, the sensation was electric, literally. Faint bioluminescent sparks danced where they touched, her body responding to his in ways human physiology could never replicate. Yet beneath the alien wonder was something achingly familiar, longing, trust, the quiet joy of being wanted exactly as one was. He explored her with lips and hands, learning the map of her pleasure. The sensitive curve beneath her ear where a sigh became a moan, the dip of her spine that made her arch into him, the places where her glow brightened like dawn breaking. She returned every caress tenfold, her touch both gentle and commanding, guiding him, teaching him the rhythm of her world while surrendering to his. When he entered her, it was slow, careful, watching her face for any sign of discomfort. There was none, only wonder, lips parted on a soundless gasp, eyes wide and shimmering. The bond surged, minds merging in a rush of shared sensation. He felt her pleasure as his own, felt himself through her eyes, strong, tender, utterly devoted. She felt his awe at her beauty, his fierce protectiveness, the depth of emotion he had never spoken aloud. They moved together, unhurried at first, then faster, chasing the crest that built like a supernova. When release came, it was blinding. Waves of light and heat and emotion crashing through them both, shared so completely there was no longer any line between his climax and hers. They cried out in unison, names mingling on trembling lips, bodies locked in perfect rhythm as the universe narrowed to the space between them. Afterward they lay entwined, sweat slick and glowing, her literally, him by reflection. Her head rested on his chest, listening to the steady thunder of his heart. His fingers traced lazy patterns along her spine, following veins of faint light that pulsed in time with his touch. "I love you," he said quietly, the words simple and true. She lifted her head, eyes liquid starlight. "And I love you, Ethan Harlow, beyond duty, beyond canon, with everything I am." They fell asleep like that, bodies curled together, minds gently touching, no fear between them. For the first time in either life, solitude had been banished. Dawn, artificial, relentless, arrived too soon. They rose, bathed in the suite's sonic shower, dressed in ceremonial finery. Ethan in dress blacks trimmed with Etherian silver, Lyrael in a gown that seemed woven from nebulae themselves. Hand in hand they walked to the main atrium. The station had transformed overnight. Banners of both human and Etherian design hung from the rafters. Diplomats, crew, civilians, hundreds strong, filled the galleries. Cameras hovered, broadcasting to fleets and worlds light years away. On a raised dais stood an officiant from each side, a human fleet chaplain and an Etherian starseer. As Ethan and Lyrael ascended, the crowd hushed. The starseer spoke first, voice resonating like distant bells. Before the stars that birthed us all, do you, Lyrael Vasari, choose this human as consort, guardian, heartbound? I do, she answered, clear and unwavering. With joy and without reservation. The chaplain turned to Ethan. And do you, Ethan Harlow, choose this Etherian princess as your partner, protector, beloved? I do, he said, voice steady despite the thunder in his chest. Forever. They joined hands. A ribbon of light, pure energy, wove from the starseer's staff, encircling their wrists, binding them. The bond flared white-hot, then settled into a warm, permanent glow deep inside them both. The atrium erupted in applause, some polite, some genuine, many uncertain. But none of it mattered. They kissed before the galaxy, soft, lingering, triumphant. And in that moment, enemies watching from afar knew. The princess and her human consort were no longer prey. They were a force. Yet even as joy crested, a shadow stirred. In the secure feed room far below, Uncle Caliph smiled thinly at the broadcast. Let them celebrate, he murmured to the assassin at his side. Tomorrow, we remind them that even bonded souls can bleed. The attack came at the precise moment the station's artificial dawn cycle began, when celebrations still lingered in the corridors and champagne holograms faded from view. Uncle Caliph's strike team, cloaked in phase-shifted armor, breached the outer hull near the main reactor. They moved like shadows given teeth, silent, precise, intent on one goal: disrupt the reactor, force an emergency evacuation. In the chaos, eliminate the bonded pair before the galaxy could fully rally behind their union. Alarms screamed, bulkheads slammed. Ethan and Lyrael, still in ceremonial attire from the previous night's festivities, were already moving. The deepened bond sang between them. Every heartbeat, every flicker of intent shared instantaneously. No words needed. They ran together through service corridors, Ethan's hand locked around hers, her bioluminescence flaring brighter with every step as adrenaline fed her glow. They're heading for the reactor core, Ethan said aloud for the benefit of the security channel still open in his earpiece. We can cut them off at Junction 7. Lyrael nodded, her mind already threading into the station's auxiliary systems through a discrete telepathic interface only royals possessed. I'm locking blast doors behind them. They'll be trapped. But Caliph had anticipated resistance. A secondary team waited in ambush, 6 assassins, weapons humming with void disruptor tech designed to shred both flesh and Etherian energy fields. The first shot caught Ethan in the shoulder as he shoved Lyrael behind a coolant stack. Pain exploded white-hot, but the bond turned it into shared fire. She gasped, feeling it as her own. Ethan. I'm fine, he gritted, drawing his sidearm with his good hand. Stay low. She refused. Instead, she stepped forward, palms outward, and unleashed a wave of pure telepathic force, not an attack, but a shield of shimmering light that bent the next volley around them like water parting around stone. The assassins staggered, disoriented. Ethan fired twice. Clean, center-mass shots. 2 down. Lyrael extended the shield, pushing it outward until it pinned the remaining 4 against the bulkhead. Now, she said, voice steady despite the strain. Ethan advanced, weapon raised. Drop them, or we drop you. 3 complied. The 4th lunged. Ethan met him mid-stride, driving an elbow into the assassin's throat, then a knee to the gut. The man crumpled. Silence fell, broken only by the distant wail of containment teams sealing the breach. Commander Voss's voice crackled through comms. Harlow, Princess, reactor stable, breach contained. Kalith is in custody on his shuttle. The evidence trail is airtight. Federation and Etherian fleets are converging. It's over. Lyriel lowered her shield. The glow in her skin softened to a gentle, steady luminescence. She turned to Ethan, eyes shimmering with tears and triumph. You're hurt. Worth it, he said, managing a crooked smile despite the blood soaking his sleeve. Medics arrived minutes later. The wound was cauterized, nanites injected. By the time they reached the main atrium, now a command post rather than a celebration hall, Ethan walked unaided. Lyriel's arm looped through his. Ambassador Lin waited with a data slate. Kalith confessed under truth scan. The entire war faction is being dismantled. Your uncle's allies are fleeing or surrendering. The Sovereign has issued a decree. Peace talks with the Federation will begin immediately, with you both as co-signatories. Voss approached, her stern face finally softening. You two just saved this station and probably averted a war. I'm putting you both on extended leave. Non-negotiable. Ethan glanced at Lyriel. Where to? She smiled, small and radiant. Velthara, my home. Our home now. The palace has gardens that bloom under triple suns. I want to show you the place where I used to dream of someone like you. He lifted her hand to his lips. Then that's where we go. Weeks later, after diplomatic fanfare, joint press briefings, and tearful farewells to crewmates, they stood together on a balcony overlooking the celestial spire. 3 suns hung low, bathing the crystal city in gold, rose, and sapphire. Lyriel wore a simple gown of dawn silk, Ethan civilian attire that still somehow looked like a uniform on his broad frame. She leaned against him, head on his shoulder. No more running, no more shadows. He wrapped an arm around her waist. Just us, and whatever future we build. Their minds touched, gentle, constant, like breathing. He felt her contentment deep and unshakable. She felt his quiet joy, the certainty that he had finally found where he belonged. I love you, she whispered. I love you, he answered. Below them, the city lights began to rise in harmony with the setting suns. Somewhere far away, treaties were being signed. Borders were opening. A new era was dawning. But here, on this balcony, none of that mattered. Here, 2 souls, human and Etherian soldier and princess, had found each other against every odd the galaxy could throw, and they were home.
Ay, el niño, sí, güey. ¿De nuevo ataque? No, Martín, se supone que estamos en portada de Twitch. En teoría. Ay, no.
Se reprodujo esta carta.
Chale. Oh, ya suelten el diván, compare, 4 artículos. No mames, chatoncio, qué pedo, güey. O sea, en buen pedo. También. Están viendo que no hay chamba y se tardan un vergo. Esto es tiempo.
Me golpean. Vete a la verga, Isuli. Ven,
1500, eso de media como máximo por...
Se reprodujo esta carta.
Y la Jimena los empacó.
Se reprodujo esta carta.
No mames, el pedido ya tiene mo.
Se reprodujo esta carta.
No mames, el pedido ya lo voy a entregar.
Ay, me pica el pene, me pica el pene.
Ay. Señora de enfrente debe estar hasta la verga de mí, güey. ¿Qué pedo, güey? ¿Togen? Con 10 bits puedes... Con permiso, con permiso. Ya que se vaya la niña, güey. Güey, su pinche rana está bien verga, güey. Es niña. Pensé que era niño. No, no, no.
¿Beso entre todos o qué?
Va. Tú nomás di cuándo y yo pongo el beso. Oh, compadre, ya deme mi pedido. ¿Eras para esos 10 bits? Esa niña sabe cosas. Le- Justo dicho y hecho, güey. La señora que estaba enfrente de mí estaba hasta la verga de mí, cabrón.
Con el tigre equivocado, pendejo de mierda. Que te quede bien pinche claro, cabrón.
Está perradísimo.
Qué pinche vergüenza me da. Eres mi amigo, cabrón, pero eres puto. Y eso me da muchísima pena, cabrón. Se te quite ya.
Yo.
Y que no mames, güey.